The interstellar academy of Veyrath stood on a moon with 3 suns and no mercy. Its halls were carved from volcanic obsidian, polished so smooth that cadets could see their own reflections walking beside them, alien faces beside alien faces, 17 species under one roof, all of them competing for the same commission slots at the Galactic Defense Corps. The academy accepted only the best. It graduated fewer. Humans had been attending for 6 years. In that time, they had passed exams, filed reports, and quietly sat in the back of every lecture hall, careful not to make too much noise. The other species tolerated them. That was the correct word, tolerated. Humans were new. Humans were soft. Humans had no claws, no venom glands, no redundant organs, no natural armor. Humans were, in the words of Professor Kaelzer himself, the galaxy's most optimistic mistake. Kaelzer was a Drevathi, 8 feet of dense gray muscle wrapped in a professor's ceremonial sash, with 4 arms and eyes that cycled slowly through color depending on his mood. When he lectured, they were gold, calm, authoritative, bored. He was the Academy's only licensed beast master, certified in the handling and deployment of war-class fauna across 14 star systems. His course, Applied Combat Biology, was mandatory for all third-year cadets. Today was assessment day. Mara Ellison sat in the 4th row, 3rd seat from the left, her datapad balanced on her knee. She was 22 years old, 5'6", with dark circles under her eyes from 3 weeks of consecutive night study. Her uniform was pressed. Her boots were clean. She had learned early that humans at Veyrath were watched more closely than the other cadets, not out of respect, but because everyone was waiting for them to fail. She wasn't going to fail. Around her, Kreth soldiers sat with their 6-limbed bulk barely contained by the seats. Beside them, a cluster of Veloxy students murmured to each other in their clicking language. Behind her, a pair of Thurn cadets, both nearly transparent, their organs visible through pale skin, leaned together and whispered something she couldn't hear. She caught the word Terran. It was not a compliment. Professor Kaelzer swept into the room from a side corridor and every conversation died. He did not greet them. He never greeted them. He walked directly to the center platform, turned to face the class with his gold eyes steady and sweeping, and said nothing for a long, deliberate moment. Then he touched a panel on the wall. The floor opened. A mechanical platform rose from below, and on it, restrained by 8 thick electromagnetic cables, stood a Vorkai. Mara had read about Vorkai. She had studied them at length, specifically because she had suspected Kaelzer would use one today. They were roughly the size of a large earth bear, but built more like a siege weapon, low to the ground, with 4 legs like reinforced columns, a hide so thick that standard-issue pulse blasters left no mark, and a skull designed by evolution to function as a battering ram. Their vision was poor. Their hearing was extraordinary. Their aggression response to sudden movement was virtually instantaneous. They were used in certain systems as living landmines. The class pulled back. Several cadets at the front row actually stood up and stepped backward. The Vorkai snarled, a sound like tearing metal, and strained against its cables. Kaelzer let the tension breathe for exactly 4 seconds. Then he spoke. "This is a juvenile Vorkai," he said. "Approximately 60% of adult mass. Restraint is active. The assessment is as follows. 1 cadet will enter the containment perimeter, approach the creature, and successfully execute a manual neural suppression hold." Here, he touched the side of his own neck, indicating a pressure point, for a minimum of 12 seconds. At which point, the Vorkai will enter a temporary docile state. He paused. "Who volunteers?" Silence. Complete, absolute silence. The Thurn cadets exchanged a glance. The Veloxy students looked at the floor. The Kreth soldiers, who regularly wrestled each other for recreation, sat very still and studied the far wall with sudden intensity. Kaelzer's eyes shifted from gold to a faint, contemptuous amber. He had expected this. He had seen it before. Assessment Day was designed to find the ones who would not step forward, because the Galactic Defense Corps had no use for officers who froze when the moment came. No one, he said. The word was flat as a blade. More silence. Mara looked at the Vorkai. She had counted the cables. She had noted the angle of its skull and where its weight was distributed. She had clocked the rhythm of its breathing, fast, stressed, looking for an outlet. She had also noticed something Kael'zer hadn't mentioned. The creature kept turning its head left, favoring its right side. Possible injury. Possible sensitivity. She had 2 seconds of debate with herself. She raised her hand. The room did not just go quiet, it had been quiet. Now it went strange. Heads turned. Several cadets stared openly. A Kreth soldier made a low sound that might have been surprise. Kael'zer looked at her. His eyes cycled from amber back to gold, then shifted into something cooler, a pale silver she hadn't seen before. Curiosity, maybe. Or evaluation. Cadet Ellison, he said. Yes, sir. She was already standing. You are aware of what you are volunteering for? Yes, sir. You are also aware, he said, slowly, that you are human. I've been informed of that, sir. Several times. A sound moved through the classroom. It might have been laughter. It might have been nervousness. Kael'zer studied her for one more second, then gestured toward the containment perimeter. Proceed. She didn't run. Running would trigger the creature's response. She walked, measured pace, arms loose at her sides, making no sudden angles. She breathed through her nose, kept her gaze low rather than meeting the Vorkai's eyes directly. It tracked her with its ears first, then turned its head. She watched its weight shift. Right side sensitive, she reminded herself. Stay left. She stopped 4 feet from the edge of the Vorkai's range and waited. This part was not in any manual. This part she had worked out herself. The Vorkai needed a moment to register that she was not fleeing and not attacking. She was simply present. Non-threatening. A fact of the environment. The creature snorted. Tossed its massive head. Looked at her with one small, clouded eye. She took 1 step closer. It snarled. She didn't move. She kept breathing. She kept her eyes soft. She had spent her childhood on a farm in northern Canada and had calmed spooked horses and cornered dogs and once a black bear that had wandered into the yard because her father had told her, "Don't let them red fear off you, and don't give them a reason to escalate." The Vorkai's snarl dropped in pitch. Its breathing slowed by 1 beat. She moved. Not fast, efficient. She stepped inside its range before it could recalibrate, placed both hands at the base of its skull where the neural cluster sat just below the armored plate, found the pressure points her fingers had memorized from anatomical diagrams read at 2 in the morning for 3 consecutive nights, and she pressed. The Vorkai shuddered. A sound came out of it like a groan. Then it sank. Not collapsed, sank. Slowly, like something very large becoming very tired. Its legs folded. Its enormous head lowered. And Mara Ellison stood in the containment perimeter with both hands on a war-class alien predator while the countdown clock above the door read 01, 02, 03. She held on. 10, 11, 12. She stepped back. The Vorkai breathed, docile and slow, its eyes half closed. The room was absolutely silent for 3 full seconds. Then one of the Kreth soldiers started hitting his desk with his palm, the Kreth equivalent of applause. The Veloxi clicked rapidly. Even the Thurn cadets, who almost never showed reaction to anything, were watching her with their pale, visible hearts beating visibly faster. Mara walked back to her seat, sat down, and put her datapad back on her knee. Professor Kael'zer watched her. His eyes had shifted to a color she couldn't name, deep blue, like something between water and midnight, a color she had never seen on him before. Later, she would ask a Drevathi exchange student what that color meant. The student would pause for a moment, then say, "In our language, there is not a perfect translation. The closest would be, I did not know. Now I do." Kaelzer said nothing for a long moment. Then he turned back to the class. "That," he said, "is what assessment day is for." He did not look at Mara again. He didn't need to. But when the class files were submitted that evening, her assessment record had one word in the professor's own notation field, written not in standard, but in Drevathi script. It translated, roughly, to exceptional. Humanity had been in the galaxy for 6 years. They were learning. So was everyone else.